Chapter 9. The Journey to the Forgotten City.
So, you're a princess?
Sith asked as he lunged on Red 13's back, much to the older beast's annoyance.
Yes.
If you don't mind me asking, my lady, but why are you travelling alone to the Forgotten City? Why not bring guards and your entourage to find him? Travelling alone with this beast isn't the safest bet.
He patted Red 13's side. Red 13 growled and knocked Sith off his back. The cat raised his little fist at him. Aerith, however, scooped the cat up and allowed him to ride on her shoulders. Red 13 did not like Sith riding on him and only relented when the princess begged her pet to do so. However, he was fed up with the cat's constant shifting and poking at him.
I can't return home. If I did, my mother and father would never let me leave the castle. They would probably marry me up to the next suitor to look through the doors. Besides, I have to save Prince Cloud. I owe him.
Owe him?
The cat meowed, greedily wiggling his fingers. Aerith knew the cat was meaning treasures, but instead of correcting him, she decided to ask her own question.
How much further is it to your friend's home?
The cat stood on her shoulders and scanned the area, a forest with trees so tall they created a canopy over the floor. When he was done, he sat back down on her shoulders, flopping down hard. His paws gripped the curls of her hair. Aerith grimaced but ignored it since she needed this cat.
We should be there just before dark.
Thankfully. We almost out of food, and my legs feel like they are about to fall off.
You shouldn't complain, princess. Walking is good for the heart.
If walking is so good for you, why do you not walk?
I am on the lookout for monsters. If I am on the ground walking, I cannot see.
Aerith rolled her eyes. Even if Sith saw a monster, it was Red 13 who would detect it first. Despite his old age, he was a very smart animal. Red 13 did not take kindly to Sith and his constant talking. The princess was sure if she did not intervene, her faithful pet would rip the cat's throat out. When the sun began to set, Sith bounded from Aerith's shoulders and led the rest of the way to the home of the cat's friend. Aerith wondered if it would be another cat-like creature like him or a person. When they finally arrived, the view astounded Aerith. It was a massive canyon. Despite the stars now twinkling overhead, the canyon was illuminated with torches, giving her ample view.
Welcome to Cosmo Canyon.
Suddenly, Red 13 rushed away down the path that would lead to the bottom of the canyon, startling Aerith.
Red!
She called after him, but the pet ignored her. Without hesitating any longer, she ran after him. Sith held onto her braid to keep him from falling off her back. When the princess finally reached her pet again, she found him scratching at a door at the bottom of the canyon. Aerith took a breath as Sith stood up on her shoulders to see overhead.
It seems your little puppy has been here before, lassie. Not to mention he led us directly to the house of my friend.
Well, it was my father who discovered Red 13. So maybe this is his home.
Red 13 continued to paw at the door.
Well, I best be off. I have much to do and very little time to do it.
As Sith jumped off her hood.
Why are you in such a hurry now?
No reason.
He began to walk off.
Wait! How will your friend help us without you?
The door clicked open. Aerith turned around to see an old man with thick black glasses on, a silver mustache and beard that was completely bald on top of his head. Aerith was staring in amazement at the man because he was levitating.
How in the world is...
Aerith began, but the old man cut her off.
Red 13, is that you? My, it's been years since I've seen you.
His old hand reached out and stroked the animal's head. He then looked up at Aerith, who instantly straightened and gave him a sweet smile. The old man blinked. He looked at her as if he saw her before. Then he confirmed it, and his lips twitched to a smile.
Well, if it isn't Princess Aerith.
You know me?
I've known you since you were a baby. However, I doubt you would remember an old man like me. Oh, my dear, I've known your mother and fathers for years, although it's been ages since they visited me. Alas, what brings you here?
Well, a friend of yours told me that you can help me.
A friend? Who are you speaking about?
Kasif. He was right here.
The old man's eyes narrowed behind his dark glasses. He then turned to Red 13 and nodded his head towards the animal as if silently talking to him. The next thing Aerith knew, Red 13 ran off. Before she could even ask what was going on, she heard the sound of Kasif's voice screeching. She looked back to see Red 13 dragging the black and white cat by his tail to the old man. Once he reached him, he let go of the cat. Kasif landed on the ground in a heap. When he picked himself up, he looked up and saw the old man glaring at him. The cat began to sweat as he nervously scratched the back of his head.
Bugenhagen! Long time no see!
Kasif squeaked more like a mouse than a cat. Bugenhagen, the old man, bonked the cat on the head.
You mangy feline! I ought to string you up over and open fire!
Forgive me. I didn't mean to. Oh!
Bugenhagen smacked him again. After 10 minutes of begging for forgiveness and being smacked around, Bugenhagen finally allowed the trio into his home. It turned out Kasif had stolen several of Bugenhagen's things and sold them for some quick money. Kasif was rubbing his head as he sat in Aerith's lap. Aerith offered no sympathy since he deserved it. Red 13 laid at her feet comfortably. Bugenhagen floated across the room, offering Aerith some tea and Red 13 some as well. He reluctantly gave Kasif some. Then he settled in a chair with a soft cushion on it before helping himself to tea.
So you knew my family?
Aerith asked after sipping her tea.
Indeed. You were the reason Red 13 was brought to you. When your parents brought you here for a visit, you loved Red 13. Surprisingly, he took a liking to you too. Red 13 isn't very trusting of humans. However, I do not think this is some sort of social visit. You seem troubled, my dear.
I need your help.
My help?
Yes. I need to know the location of the Forgotten City.
Bugenhagen became stiff.
Why would you want to know that?
Someone is there who needs my help.
It's the Wolf Prince.
Bugenhagen rubbed his beard. He pondered this and then placed his own cup down. He began to float again.
Come with me.
Aerith got up from her chair, carrying Kasif with her. She did not trust him alone in a room. Red 13 followed. The three followed the floating man up a staircase to a large room. The walls were dark, and they stood in the center of a white platform. Bugenhagen pressed a button somewhere, and all of a sudden the room lit up. The walls were covered in what looked like thousands, if not millions, of some lights that reminded Aerith of the stars. Overhead, large orbs floated in the air, some with rings around them. They were planets.
This is my observatory. I have studied the planets and the stars for years, especially this planet.
A single planet began to grow and rotate around. Aerith stared at it in amazement.
This is Gaia, our home planet, my dear. Now you are here, in Cosmo Canyon.
He pointed a bent old figure to their location. He then traced his finger over the world to another area, in the area that did not seem to be forest.
The Forgotten City is here. However, the only way to enter the city is through the ancient forest. However, the ancient forest is very dangerous, and if you stray from the past, you'll be lost forever within the forest. How important is Prince Cloud to you?
He's the most important person to me.
Bugenhagen eyed her for several minutes before smiling.
Never forget that. Now, once you find the city, you will find the castle of Genova. The king of the castle will not allow you entry.
Then, how will I be able to save Cloud?
You must be willing to give up. Yourself.
Myself?
Those who reside within the castle are filled with greed and will do anything to get what they want. Use that to your advantage, princess. But remember, they will attempt to trick you. You must be very clever, my dear.
Aerith cast a glance at Kate Sith and then Red 13. After a moment, she turned back to the old man.
It's dangerous, my dear. Are you sure you want to go?
Without hesitation, Aerith gave a firm nod. Bugenhagen gave her a small smile before he levitated away from her. When he returned, he held out a map, which showed the exact location of the Forgotten City. Then he turned toward Red 13 and held out his hand, which contained a large pellet.
I believe you'll find it much easier to communicate with Red 13 once he eats this.
Red 13 gobbled up the pellet. Kate Sith arched an eyebrow.
Is that what I think it is?
Suddenly, Kate Sith was bonked on the head again by Bugenhagen.
You know very well what that is, and I regret showing you it.
What is it?
That is spicy like a pepper.
He can talk!
Of course! Had Red 13 stayed with me, he would have been able to talk earlier on in his life. However, this should suffice.
Aerith knelt down and looked at Red 13. He sniffed her and then let out a breath.
Is there something wrong, princess?
I've always wanted to hear you talk.
She hugged him, and then the beast nuzzled against her.
Oh, wonderful. Now I have to hear him talk all the way to the city.
You best be off in the morning, princess. Your journey will take several days.
Aerith nodded, and Bugenhagen took her and her 3 companions to a room where they could sleep throughout the night. Aerith stared out the window as she lied flat on their bed. Red 13 was at her feet. He could sense her uneasiness. Kate Sith, on the other hand, was snoring softly as he slept on a pillow next to the princess's head.
You should rest.
As he laid his head over her knee, Aerith scratched behind his ears, and Red 13 let out a low purr, his tail twitching.
I know. What Bugenhagen said is bothering me.
You mean...
I have to be willing to give up my life for Cloud.
Are you having second thoughts?
No, I am willing. I just thought that...
You just want to be with him, am I correct?
The red beast could hear a small sniffle come from the princess. She scratched his head again before laying her hand back down.
I want to be with him, more than anything.
The next morning, the princess and her 2 companions ventured from Cosmos Canyon to the Forgotten City. The walking was long and tiring. At night, the trio would take turns watching over the others, although Red 13 insisted he would take Aerith's position. However, the princess refused, wanting to take on the responsibility herself. She felt it was her fault anyway. During the night, the princess would stare at the flames of the modest campfire. As she watched the fire, she felt a burning pain in her heart every time she sat by the fire. All she could see was clouds disappearing in the flames repeatedly. The princess hugged her arms around her, sighing miserably. The journey made her weary. If not for her companions, she would have lost all hope. Regardless of her feelings, the princess continued on, managed to find the forest, which Bugenhagen spoke of. The forest, however, was nothing like any forest she had ever seen. Even Kate Sith and Red 13 were surprised by the eerie beauty of the forest. The trees were completely bare of any leaves, but the barks were not a brown like most trees, but glowing silver. Aerith sucked in a sharp breath at the beauty surrounding her.
This place gives me the creeps.
Kate Sith shivered on Aerith's shoulders. He pulled the hood of her cloak over him as a security blanket.
Keep a sharp eye. This place could be dangerous. We must not leave this path either, or we could be lost within the forest.
Aerith placed her hands under her chin. Red 13 nudged her, hoping she would share her thoughts with him.
It's strange, but you would think there would be a sign of a castle. How can I even see anything over the trees? What if Bugenhagen was wrong? There is no castle here.
Bugenhagen would not steer you wrong. Me? Maybe. But he likes you.
Aerith smiled as she looked up at Kate Sith, who was now laying on top of her head. Finding her confidence again, the three began their journey through the ancient forest. The forest itself was eerier than they anticipated. It was quiet. No sounds of animals rustling through bushes. No wind whistling through between the branches. Nothing. The forest was completely quiet. Aerith gripped her staff tightly as she walked. Red 13's eyes darted around, expecting something or someone to jump out at them. Kate Sith continued to hide beneath the hood. Kate Sith peered out from beneath the hood. He looked to his left and then to his right. His little eyes squinted as he stared into the darkness, seeing the faint glow of the trees. He turned back to look in front of him when he saw something move out of the corner of his eye. He set out a screech and clamped onto Aerith's head, startling the princess.
Ah!
Ouch! What are you screaming for?
I saw something over there!
He pointed to the right side into the forest. Red 13 took a defensive stance in front of the princess, baring his teeth. The princess and her loyal pet stared, but could not find something out of the ordinary.
I don't see anything. You must see your own shadow. Now please, if you let go of my head!
Aerith pried the cat off her head. She placed him on the ground, and they continued to walk. Kate Sith gulped. He continued walking behind them while holding onto Aerith's cloak. He nervously held it, squeezing the material in his hands.
Just a shadow.
He looked down and saw his shadow below him. He chuckled. He felt silly for getting scared over his shadow.
Your shadow. You can't hurt me.
Aerith spun around and cried out. Red 13 too spun around to see Kate Sith's shadow erupt into a large beast-like creature. It was black with sharp claws and teeth. Before the creature could pounce on the little cat, Aerith swung her staff and whacked it away.
Run!
Aerith spun around, running with Kate Sith after her. The red beast followed behind.
Where did that thing come from?
She looked back to see if it was getting up.
From my shadow.
Ah!
Red 13 skidded to a halt as two more shadow creatures burst from his shadow and Aerith's shadow. Red 13 quickly launched himself at the one nearest the princess and took it to the ground. Kate Sith began to run up to a tree as the second creature began chasing him, only to find it following him. Taking her materia when she was pushed to the ground. The princess let out a cry as the third beast screeched at her, ready to kill. She screamed, throwing her hands over her face when Kate Sith landed on his back. The little cat brought out his claws and stabbed them into the creature's face, clawing him up. With the minor distraction, Aerith fished out her fire materia and sent a large fireball at the creature. Kate Sith jumped off his back just as the fireball hit the creature. The beast turned into a black dust and vanished from existence. Kate Sith grinned as he gave Aerith a thumb up for their teamwork. Just then, the second beast landed behind him, screaming. The little cat gasped when Red 13 tackled the creature he was fighting into the other one. The two beasts collided. They went sprawling to the ground. The red beast opened his mouth, and a large green vapor came out of his mouth, incinerating them.
Are you alright, princess?
Yes, I'm fine. And you two?
Alive.
Then let's be off before more of those creatures come.
The three hurried along the path when they came to a large gap in the road with no way to cross.
Do you think we went the wrong way? Maybe we should turn around?
No, we have to stay on the path. If we get lost, we will never find our way through the woods.
Then how do we get across?
Oh, allow me!
The little feline took out a pair of dice from his little bag. He He motioned for the princess and her pet to step back a bit for room. They did as he instructed. The little cat looked at one of the trees. He sized it up, touched the bark with his paw, and circled it a few times. After calculating mentally, he took a few steps back and launched his dice at the tree. The dice exploded and the tree cracked loudly before falling over the gap. The tree was suspended over the gap, making a makeshift bridge for the group. The little cat took a bow for his accomplishment. Aerith clapped happily. The group then moved across the gap carefully. As Aerith walked for what seemed like forever, suddenly she stumbled forward, landing on her knees.
Are you alright?
Yes, I'm just a bit tired.
Let's rest then.
No, I'm fine. We have to keep moving.
Your Highness, we don't have much water either, but you should drink it.
No, save it.
Aerith picked herself up and continued walking when she saw something in the distance.
Ah! Look! A lake!
3 companions rushed to the lake, happy that their luck had turned around. They could refill their water. When they reached the lake, the 3 eagerly drank. When Aerith got her fill, she lifted her eyes and sucked in a sharp breath. Red 13 and Kate Sith looked up to see what was wrong, when they too sat in awe. Before them was a castle that, like the trees of the forest, glowed silver. They had finally made it to the Forgotten City, to the castle of Genova.